He is a unique star. He was a bad boy on that court.
He brought a dimension to the Lakers that didn't exist before he got here. The way he would glide down the court, the way he would float through the air and slam dunk with the greatest of ease.
Give to Worthy, slam dunk. I just picture him running down the lane, finishing.
He seemed to accelerate like the superhero The Flash, and he would just put that ball through the hoop, and there was no way to put your hand in there and stop it.
I remember in college, I used to try to do this little spin step on the block, but I would get dizzy and I couldn't do it.
Talk about a guy that could have played on any other team and been the star.
Oh, I just remember those goggles.
He could run the floor, which was the perfect complement to Magic, and he could help inside, which was the perfect complement to Kareem.
The way he could shoot, rebound, defend, do it all. He's one of the greatest players in the history of the game of basketball.
Pass down the middle of Worthy, slam dunk.
James Worthy was ahead of his time, and that's what made him so incredible.
Worthy, slam dunk.
When you play for the Lakers in the Showtime era and you're with Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, to be able to shine brighter than them, are you kidding? That's incredible.
James Worthy, probably the most underrated, maybe underappreciated Hall of Famer, superstar in NBA history.
When he came to the Lakers as the #1 overall pick, he was a perfect fit for that particular team.
Worthy coming in the left side. That's a 360 turn. It's good.
There's no Showtime without James Worthy. I mean, James was graceful. James was athletic. James was faster, and he could jump higher than anybody else.
And when the stakes rose, his game, his attitude, his disposition rose even higher.
Most great players' postseason numbers, as opposed to the regular season numbers, are pretty close to the same. Not James Worthy.
James Worthy is the person you want to be like.
James Worthy was perfect for the Showtime Lakers.
In the next hour, we count down the top 10 James Worthy moments of all time. We dive in at number 10 with an iconic play against their bitter rivals.
Every time the Lakers have come close, the Celtics have gotten the hoop to give them a 3-point lead. But Worthy saves it from Magic Johnson, and a brilliant play by James Worthy.
You know, the Showtime Lakers were they were so synonymous with glamour and prestige and sort of this, slick, high-running machine of a team. And that was a grinder play.
So that's James Worthy. Doing anything it takes to win, selling out. That's what you have to do in the playoffs. You got to sell out, sacrifice your body. And that was a classic example of James Worthy willing to do that for his team to win.
There is real grit. And James Worthy with the full dive to save it, to create the easy hoop by Magic.
When he made that pass, and I got a hand on it, but I really didn't get the steal. I had to tip it out, and I saw it bouncing right around the sideline. I said, one more bounce, and it's going to be out of bounds. So at that time, I just went for a reach, which turned into a dive, and I tipped it over to Magic Johnson in the big slide.
And it was James Worthy who ignited the form.
You know, one of the great things about the Showtime era Lakers was how they sold out for each other. Now, James, a little underrated on the defensive end, but in this instance, he steals the ball, and then it's going out of bounds, and you think, he's not going to make a play for this. But Big Game was not going to let this thing go.
But this part of the play is inspirational to the rest of his teammates. They say if Worthy can dive and play that hard, I better do the same.
The ultimate hustle play where he's outstretched, he has to save a ball. That is not the play that a diva player or a diva team makes. It was a play that a worker makes.
James Worthy sliding on the deck, looking so pretty, and just making one of the highlight plays of not only that game or the year, but of the Showtime era.
If you come to a Laker game today, in the video open that the Lakers do to get the fans fired up for the current Laker games, that play is still in the video montage. So people who weren't even alive when James Worthy made that save get to see it every night if they come to a home Laker game. One of the great plays in Laker history.
When you look back on that play, It turns the game. It turns the series. The Lakers win the first championship at home against the Celtics. It's one of those plays that sometimes gets lost in Laker lore, but people who really know this team or watching this team and follow it, they look back at that as a flashpoint play for the Showtime Lakers.
It was a turnaround moment that uplifted us. The crowd got into it. It's got to be top 10.
Next on the countdown, at number 9, Worthy goes off on the Bad Boys.
The 1989 finals, Lakers had won the first 11 games of the postseason. They were 11-0. Then Irvin and Byron Scott both blew out their hamstrings.
Lakers having to do without Byron Scott and Magic Johnson.
Byron's out. Magic's out.
So you know the Lakers are in trouble. They're in big trouble.
And we're trying to become a 3-time champion, you know, our three-peat era.
Playing against a physically imposing team like Detroit.
Against a Pistons team that was still angry about losing the year before.
But James Worthy takes it upon himself to do everything he can to lead his team.
2 seconds on the clock. James Worthy hits the field goal. So Green and Worthy, the starting forwards, have 9 of the Lakers' 15.
I jumped on his back. I'm like, James, let's go. You know, do what you do. I'm going to try and help you as much as I can.
Here's Worthy again. Another basket by Worthy. James Worthy is so hot right now off the dribble. All the Lakers say they want to do is win one game, and they've come out strong with plays like this, Huey. Watch how strong he's going. There's your up move. There comes right back and with the left hand. He's giving it to you all tonight.
For Worthy, knowing that the Lakers were at a disadvantage, in that game he did everything he could.
Worthy still 17 first quarter points for Worthy. I think we have to look for a better word than hot. This guy is really smoking.
Now understand that during the run, Worthy would have been an incredible part of the puzzle, but not the go-to guy.
Worthy needs 1 free throw to establish his career playoff high of 40 points. Actually, the 40 points would be a career high in any game, regular season or playoff.
He became one of the heads of the monster that became the Lakers.
He's got the 40, but the Lakers still trail by 4.
The Lakers just never had a chance, but that didn't stop James from being James.
Obviously, we come up short, but it wasn't because of big game James, because he dropped 40 on him.
40 points for Worthy.
Perhaps the ultimate compliment to pay someone is doing whatever is necessary, especially against all odds.
We knew we were going to be defeated, but you know, that didn't mean that I wasn't going to try to send a message to them. Because, you know, you got to play them the next year. So you still want to send a message, and I wanted them to know that where I was coming from.
Welcome back to the top 10 James Worthy moments of all time.
Worthy saves it from Magic Johnson, and a brilliant play by James Worthy.
We've seen the first 2 on the list, including Worthy sliding on the forum floor. Coming in at number 8, we go back to where it all began.
The Lakers don't get a lot of #1 overall draft picks, but they had 2 in a 4-year period, and they nailed them both. First, they drafted Magic Johnson out of Michigan State, and then they drafted James Worthy.
People have to remember how the Lakers got that pick in 1982. That was a trade that had been done 7 years earlier with the Cleveland Cavaliers for Don Ford.
2 years before he's even available to be in the draft, the Lakers get this pick from Cleveland. And then the Lakers win a coin flip, and hey, the prize is James Worthy.
That's how unreal it was.
Usually, the #1 draft pick goes to a team that's the worst team. I was very fortunate to come to a team that was already successful.
For the Lakers to get James Worthy was a stroke of incredible luck on so many levels.
There wasn't a lottery yet. That didn't happen until 1985. Ted Septian was the owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers, and he was making some wild trades.
They had Cleveland's first rounder in 1982 by trading Don Ford, who was averaging, I think, 3 points a game at the time. That ended up getting them a pick where they were #1 in the draft.
It was a lot different back then. In order to get the #1 draft pick, it was a coin toss between the worst team in the league and then the team who had the #1 draft pick. in which the Lakers had due to that trade. So they flipped the coin, and the Lakers won the pick.
He's 6'9", 225 pounds from North Carolina, James Worthy.
Here's a team, that had just won a championship a couple years before, and all of a sudden they get the top pick in the draft.
And there were 3 possible candidates for #1 pick. They could have gone for Dominique Wilkins. They could have gone for Tom Chambers. There were questions about whether, as great as he might be, was he the best of the 3.
So it was not a clear-cut #1.
But Worthy was the guy that was going to fit best with this team, and you got to give Jerry West credit for always seeming to make those right decisions.
And that was the one thing that Jerry knew. He knew the piece that was going to fit into our puzzle good. Everybody was looking at the human highlight. Dominique with the fantastic dunks. Terry Cummings was a power player, but James fit our style.
Rebound to Kareem. He peels it off his ear. Gives it to Worthy. Worthy coming in the left side. Does a 360 turn. It's good!
James Worthy, with his speed and his athleticism, he just fit in like he had been there all his life.
When they took James Worthy, I am not exaggerating, I was sitting in my office and just burst out laughing. I thought, oh, this is unfair. Now this is unfair.
First of all, they had Bob McAdoo, who went to North Carolina, and then Magic, Kareem, Jamal.
He was the perfect complement to all of those players.
My style of game, I was a fast break, kind of a player who ran the floor well, a power forward in college, with the quickness to run the fast break with Magic, and I think that's kind of what they were looking for.
Magic bounce down the middle of Worthy slam dunk, left-handed. You talk about
to go ahead and get Big Game in that spot and to pair him with Magic and Kareem, I just got to say that's a stroke of genius by the GM.
I think that was part of why Jerry West looked at James Worthy and said, this is the guy.
Jerry West and Bill Sharman and the Lakers staff decided that I fit in with the Lakers, so that's where the journey began.
Next on the countdown, from fulfilling a dream to becoming an All-Star, the 1986 All-Star Game, his first of 7 consecutive appearances.
If there's any downside for an individual player to be drafted to a team that has Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, it might be a little hard to get to eat yourself, too.
So much conversation now in the NBA is about big threes. To have an NBA team with 3 legitimate stars, one guy is nearly always squeezed out.
You don't get to shine as much, and that was one of the reasons that they drafted me, because I had the attitude of being that team player.
Despite being in the shadows of Magic and Kareem, Worthy took a big step forward as a clutch performer during the Lakers' 1985 championship run.
And I think that was his coming out party, per se. When I say coming out party in '85 when they won their championship, I think that kind of set the tempo for the rest of James's career. No more underrated, no more backseat to anybody. When you talked about the Lakers, you always put his name in the forefront with everybody else.
The following season would be the first of 7 consecutive All-Star appearances for Worthy.
To be elected to the All-Star game 7 years in a row is really a reflection of hard work and dedication and passion of the game. And I know playing for an elite team like the Lakers helped me get to that, the notoriety in them. But to be accepted by the fans and to be amongst other peers, Larry Bird, Julius Erving, Isaiah Thomas, all these guys, to be elected to that group was honored and privileged. I'm one of the best now, in my mind. I'm an all-star. So I got to act like an all-star, I got to play like an all-star, and I got to up the level every year now. You just can't be, mediocre. When you become an all-star, you got to, it kind of puts you in a position where you got to do more.
What made Worthy so unusual, he was a third superstar, even though he's often talked about as a role player. When you really look back at what he accomplished, 7 straight trips to the All-Star game, it was a legitimate and organic big 3.
And so when Big Game finally was able to get that All-Star nod in '86, that just went, I think, to show not just him, but the rest of the NBA, hey, this guy's a star too. It's not just Magic and Kareem. We know how good he is on the court, but it's not just that he's that good, he's all-star good. And that's important for a guy.
He's 6'9", 225 pounds from North Carolina, James Worthy.
Jerry West decided that I fitted in with the Lakers, so that's where the journey began.
Welcome back to the top 10 James Worthy moments of all time. Before we move on, let's take a look back at the first four.
It was a turnaround moment that uplifted us. The crowd got into it. It's got to be top 10.
I jumped on his back. I'm like, James, let's go. You know, do what you do. I'm going to try and help you as much as I can.
We knew we were going to be defeated, but, you know, that didn't mean that I wasn't going to try to send a message to them.
For the Lakers to get James Worthy was a stroke of incredible luck on so many levels.
To go ahead and get Big Game in that spot and to pair him with Magic and Kareem, I just got to say that's a stroke of genius by the GM.
To be elected to the All-Star game 7 years in a row is really a reflection of hard work and dedication and passion of the game.
And now the countdown continues with number 6 and Worthy's signature choice of eyewear.
When you think of James Worthy, beyond talent, beyond 1988 Finals MVP, beyond 50 greatest players of all time, you're going to think of goggles. You're going to think of iconic goggles. The man put goggles on the map.
It's ironic that two of the greatest players in Laker history, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and James Worthy, both wore goggles.
See, here's the thing about goggles. Some guys don't look good in goggles. Some guys do. But think about the Lakers. You have Kareem in goggles, you got Worthy in goggles, and then you got Rambis with the glasses.
The interesting thing to me about the goggles with James Worthy is that I don't remember any other star player actually wearing goggles for that long. Maybe somebody can remind me if there's another All-Star Finals MVP that went for a triple-double in Game 7 and was awesome.
Oh, Worthy loses welcome. Underneath with a slam dunk. Oh, my, what a shot.
Well, you know what? When James started developing his game, obviously from the perimeter, he was able to hit the little short jumper, pump fake drive to the basket. But where he really became a force was just posting up. And obviously the rest of the league knew this guy could play. He's a difficult matchup one-on-one, so they started sending double teams. And, you know, guards go down there, and I've even done it myself. You're just swiping away without looking, and he gets hit in the eye.
I had to wear this patch over my eye for a couple of weeks, and it was annoying. And when I came back, Kareem noticed my game had changed a little bit because that was the second time that I'd had an eye injury.
When Big Game James, he was starting to, like, get back into the swing of things, and when he would go into the lane, he was timid. He didn't want to get hit in the eye again.
And when you're a rugged power forward and your game is brute strength, you can't shy away from contact.
So Kareem noticed that I wasn't going to the basket as hard as I was before. He noticed that once I got into traffic, that I would either throw up a little rainbow shot or I would pull up for a little short jumper. And he knew my game was going all the way to the cup. So he said, you should wear goggles because you're afraid to get hit again. And he was right. He was absolutely right.
So when he put those goggles on, it was like a comfort zone, a safe haven. Go ahead and hit me, because I'm not stopping.
And once I got used to the goggles, and once I got hit a couple times and knew that my eyes were protected, my game came back, and I wore them ever since.
The goggles became a trademark of who he was, and people couldn't understand why he would continue to wear those goggles. But it really became as much a part of his game as his game did.
That became James' signature look. And now when I watch tape or I watch some of our games, I don't hardly recognize it without him. I know James with the goggle spectacle guy, you know.
Worthy with another basket.
And I think it allowed him to have even a more distinction around the league for kids growing up and just kind of associating him with those goggles. And he still does it to this day. Anytime you see a picture of James or an action figure or something like that, a bobblehead, there are the goggles right there.
It also helped cement who he was. And I think it symbolized the fact he would do anything necessary to win.
Welcome back to that top 10 James Worthy moments of all time.
Kareem knew my game was going all the way to the cup. So he said, you should wear goggles because you're afraid to get hit again. And he was right.
Which moment couldn't crack the list? Worthy's dunk on Cedric Maxwell in the 1984 Finals is our best of the rest.
They were trash talkers, especially to a young player like me. It was my first time in the finals. They tried to intimidate me. So, you know, we were a showcase team, fast break team.
The Celtics cannot handle the speed of the Lakers.
And this was a play where Kareem had the ball, I think, free throw line extended. They went to double, and I went back door. And the only thing that was between me and the basket was Cedric Maxwell, and my eyes lit up.
1984. I was a junior in college. I'll never forget that dunk. Right down the middle of the lane. And it was great. It was over a Celtic. Cornbread Maxwell.
And I tried to put my knee right in his neck if I could. It was just a beautiful thing to dunk on him in particular, because he talked a lot of trash.
The reason why that dunk stands out is because back then, you didn't have SportsCenter Top 10. Now you see 2 or 3 dunks where somebody gets posterized and, you know, it's a big deal. Back then, dunks were rare. You might have, 3 or 4 dunks a game.
I like to call it the Statue of Liberty because he took off and he just took that arm and it went straight up.
It was one of these moments as a Laker fan where you were like, yeah, take that,
It was an emphatic finish. And James showed no emotion. It's just what you do when you're James Worthy.
And now, back to the countdown. Coming in at number 5, the Hall comes calling for James.
Well, my biggest frustration with James Worthy in the Hall of Fame was what took so long. It was a shame. It was a crime that the Hall of Fame kept waiting and waiting and waiting to honor a guy that was voted one of the 50 greatest players in the first 50 years of the NBA.
Well, I remember the first 2 calls, I think 2002 and 2001, where I didn't get it. And you still have to tell them that it's an honor just to be nominated and move on. The third time I got that call, and they told me that I had gotten it, and that's the bookend. You've already had the bookend on the front where you get your college scholarship, and then you move all the way through the league, and now you're done. And now people are remembering what you did. My college coach, Coach Dean Smith, inducted me.
A privilege to present James Worthy for induction in the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame.
It was a special moment for me.
Big game, James, come on up.
When greatness is bestowed upon you, it's one that you worked for, it's something that you prepared for, and it's something that you worked through. And I think throughout the course of his career, James played at a Hall of Fame legendary status.
That, to me, was the period at the end of a great career.
Wow, this is the ultimate.
To be given that honor amongst all basketball contributors.
Marge Hearn, you were the mother of the Lakers. And you and Chick were both just great people, and you were bridge gappers. You created a lot of harmony.
Nothing could have meant as much to him as going in with Chick Hearn, because Chick had tragically passed away the year before, and ironically, James wound up in the same field as a broadcaster. It was a bittersweet time for the Lakers.
It was amazing to watch how to be a professional like Chicky.
To reach this evening, to be...
Nothing could have meant as much to him as going in with Chick Hearn, because Chick had tragically passed away the year before, and ironically, James wound up in the same field as a broadcaster. It was a bittersweet time for the Lakers.
It was amazing to watch how to be a professional like Chicky.
To reach this evening, to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, you have to have some skills as a basketball player. But more importantly, it's the people along the way that nurture you.
James Worthy's where he belonged in the Hall of Fame, and it's no fluke. That guy worked for it, and it's a fun part to see how that happened. I saw him when he first came in this league until he was out of the league.
All I can do is say, all right, all right.
Big game, James, come on up.
When greatness is bestowed upon you, it's one that you worked for, it's something that you prepared for, and it's something that you worked through. And I think throughout the course of his career, James played at a Hall of Fame legendary status.
Welcome back to the top 10 James Worthy moments of all time. Next on the countdown, Worthy proves he's more than just a third wheel.
To be considered one of the best players ever, great. But to go down in history as one of the top 50 players, that's fantastic.
Backhand layup, no rebound to Worthy. Slam dunk.
People forget just how good of a player James Worthy was because he spent his Laker career with Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, two guys who are in the conversation for greatest of all time. So a guy like James Worthy, who was never really the focal point of any of those teams, it's easy to forget just how much he brought to the mix, but just how good he was. You're talking about one of the 50 greatest players of all time.
To, in some ways, be the number 2 on your team, but be recognized as one of the 50 greatest ever to do it, that takes some education by the fans and the media. That takes some people actually watching. So I have to imagine from James' perspective, that felt good to realize that, yes, you weren't Magic Johnson, but it's okay. We noticed.
Now the Worthy dribble drive down the middle. Slam dunk. I think he better change defenses on Worthy.
When you're recognized as one of the 50 greatest players in the NBA, that kind of says it all right there. Because you're now not only talking about some greatness of your own, but greatness within your peer group. And the history of the NBA goes back a long, long way.
He played the position unlike other people. He possessed skills others didn't.
James Worthy, the way that he played, his style, on some championship teams, Worthy's a winner. He deserves to be in the top 50.
Being named one of the 50 greatest, becoming a Hall of Famer, getting his jersey put up on the wall at Staples Center, those all had to be moments that were just a culmination of all of everything that James Worthy put into his career and everything he became.
The parade is set for Tuesday. I'll be there. I'll be there with my shades and my hat on, might take my dog.
It's amazing, and it's a real testament to the type of players that James Worthy played with and the type of era that Showtime was, that James Worthy can actually get a little bit lost in the shuffle.
You know, anytime you get picked to be amongst the greatest, that's a tough task to choose the top 50. But you know, I think for my accomplishments in the 80s and the impact that I had, especially in '88, I think, you know, I accepted it, you know, and again, it's a great honor, and I appreciate it.
He gets it back. He puts it over his head and scores. James Worthy. If he weren't here, they'd call it off.
From cracking the top 50 to being immortalized in the rafters at Staples Center, we move on to number 3.
What a night. What an honor. What a man, James Worthy.
Here's the thing about James Worthy and his retirement. It was an appreciation from the organization of what he meant to that team. They didn't have to wait until he got into the Hall of Fame. They recognized that this was a superstar player.
If you walk into Staples Center, look up on that wall and see who's up there. It's an incredibly select group. Guys like Wilt Chamberlain, Jerry West, and now James Worthy. I know that's one of the things he feels most honored about, is being up there on that wall in that group.
James Worthy is one of the most beautiful basketball players to have ever played this game.
A jersey retirement, you know, is a final stamp, seal of approval. And I think when Dr. Buss made that ultimate final decision, after 12 years, you know, of James really putting it all out here for the Laker organization, it was the least he could do.
It was the Lakers' way of saying, we know how much you meant to these championship teams, and you're absolutely on the same level in our eyes with the Magics and the Kareems on who were the biggest contributors to those championship teams in Showtime.
He played 12 years in the league, 7 times an All-Star. He had a career average of 18 points a game. His playoff average in 7 different playoffs was 21 points a game. He did it all. That's why we're here. That's why his jersey's there. And here is James.
To have been in a city and to have made that type of impact to where they want to retire your jersey, that meant a lot to me, because I sweat blood and tears for this organization.
As I reflect back over 12 years of not only playing in this city of Los Angeles, but living here as a citizen, I can only say that it's been the most enhancing, the most rewarding, the most exciting experience that I've ever had.
At his jersey retirement ceremony, he actually got down on his knees and thanked God that he got to be a Laker. And you know, one thing about Laker jersey retirements, the Lakers only retire your jersey if you make it to the Hall of Fame.
You really, really, truly have to be something special to have your Laker jersey retired. So when James Worthy got his retired, it was a no-brainer. Every time I step into Staples and I glance up there, get a chance to see all of the Laker grade jerseys up there, including James Worthy.
It was quite an honor to be appreciated by Dr. Buss and by Jerry West and, you know, Pat Riley, and Chick Hearn and Bill Sharman, and, you know, so that was a big moment for me. It kind of secured my career here as a Laker.
Thank you.
When you're recognized as one of the 50 greatest players in the NBA, that kind of says it all right there.
I have to imagine from James' perspective, that felt good to realize that, yes, you weren't Magic Johnson, but it's okay. We noticed.
Welcome back to the Countdown. Before we reveal the final two worthy moments, we look at one record-setting playoff series in our best of the rest.
The transition game was at its peak. In that series, Denver was also a running team. They were a running team, particularly in Denver with the altitude. So it played right into my expertise. You want to run, let's run.
The Nuggets were one of these teams that played no defense. They were a high-scoring team, which meant, of course, that you had to have Kareem, you have to have Magic, and you have to have James Worthy coming up big, and he just was lights out.
Into Worthy, dribble drive, and again, lay it up and in.
So in an NBA playoff series, shooting 50% is great. Now, if you get somebody into the 60s, that's exceptional. That's all-star level. That's somebody that can't be guarded. But to be at 70+% like Big Game was against Denver, that is insane.
When you get hot one game, you got to heat check one game where it's just everything's going in, the rim, the ocean. But for a whole series, you shoot 70%. I mean, that's still a record today, and it's unheard of, but that's just indicative of how crazy good that this guy was.
I still demand to see those tapes somehow to wonder how he hit that many shots without missing any. Were they all dunks and layups? I mean, come on, Big Game. How'd you do it, man? Be honest.
What did you expect? That was my answer.
Before we get to the final two, here's a look back at how we got here.
This part of the play is inspirational to the rest of his teammates. They say if Worthy can dive and play that hard, I better do the same.
James Worthy sliding on the deck and just making one of the highlight plays of not only that game or the year, but of the Showtime era.
James Worthy takes it upon himself to do everything he can to lead his team.
Worthy still hot. 17 first quarter points for Worthy.
He's 6'9", 225 pounds from North Carolina, James Worthy.
James Worthy, with his speed and his athleticism, he just fit in like he had been there all his life.
To be elected to the All-Star game 7 years in a row is a reflection of hard work and dedication and passion of the game.
Hey, this guy's a star too. It's not just Magic and Kareem.
When you're a rugged power forward and your game is brute strength, you can't shy away from contact.
Kareem said you should wear goggles because you're afraid to get hit again, and he was right.
Well, my biggest frustration with James Worthy in the Hall of Fame was what took so long. It was a shame. It was a crime.
Throughout the course of his career, James played at a Hall of Fame legendary status.
To be considered one of the best players ever, great. But to go down in history as one of the top 50 players, that's fantastic.
Now to Worthy, dribble drive, down the middle, slam dunk. I think he better change defenses on Worthy. What a night. What an honor. What a man, James Worthy.
If you walk into Staples Center, look up on that wall and see who's up there. It's an incredibly select group. I know that's one of the things he feels most honored about, is being up there on that wall in that group.
And now, the number 2 worthy moment, a matchup between storied rivals. The Los Angeles Lakers' Showtime era was arguably in its prime during the 1984-85 season, when then third-year forward James Worthy etched his name into the star-studded lineup.
Lakers got it. Cooper throws it. No, Kip Worthy, yes!
After losing to the Celtics in the 1984 finals the year before, the Lakers steamrolled into the playoffs, led by Worthy's big game performances.
For most franchises, James Worthy is going to be the greatest player that they've ever had. But in LA, sometimes he kind of gets forgotten. He gets overshadowed behind Kareem, behind Magic, behind Kobe. But you can't forget about Worthy in 84-85, leading the Lakers past the Celtics for the first time and breaking that curse.
Before we go to 85, you have to look at 84. And 84, we thought we were the better team going into that series. And again, we just kind of lost our cool. But Boston did a great job. They understood what it took to win. So coming back in 85, understanding what it meant to play there and against this team, because you're not just playing against the Boston Celtics 12 or 13 players. You're playing against a whole city.
It's important to remember and understand. You have the glitz of Hollywood and the glamour. The lunch pail working class people of Boston. The Boston people didn't understand LA. These guys are flashy and showboaty, and these guys are smiling and laughing. I think that was a defining moment, not only for the Laker franchise, but for the NBA.
If I could go back, that'd be what I'd want to cover. Because I don't think there's been anything like it since. I don't think you've had the drama and the hatred between the teams and the cities.
For the 8th time, the Lakers had lost to the Celtics. If they don't win this one, I think everybody in Los Angeles would wonder if the Celtics curse would ever end.
Everything in 1984-85 was geared toward the finals. They spent as much time rooting for the Celtics to get there as they did getting themselves there. A year later, they had a chance for revenge, and that's all they wanted. And then it begins with a disaster, with a Memorial Day massacre. They get blown out at the Garden. All that this year of hopes and dreams seems like it shattered in 48 minutes.
Losing game 1 of 85 finals the way we did, the Boston Massacre, we had to really dig deep within. So that was, to me, the defining moment was game 1 and how we reacted to that.
So you get to game 5, and it's maybe the most important game in franchise history. I know we talk a lot about Magic Johnson, the triple-double in game 6. Worthy went 24 of 32 in games 5 and 6. This is incredible stuff.
I mean, that's when they started calling him, chicks started calling him Big Game James. That's where it was born.
In 85, to be able to put all those experiences together and come up with a championship, it kind of secured my confidence that I would be a Laker for a long time, because the business of the league is that, you know, sometimes you're always going to come up as a commodity on the trading blocks. But I knew after that I was going to be a Laker for a long time.
Woo! Yeah, it feels good!
And now, the #1 James Worthy moment of all time.
To give him a three-point lead, but Worthy saves it from Magic Johnson, and a brilliant play by James Worthy.
I just remember the year before, after we won in 87, Pat Riley making his famous, guarantee.
I feel grateful to be alive and living in Los Angeles, and I'm guaranteeing everybody here, next year we're going to win it again.
(1988). Big Game James is born.
With Pat Riley's guarantee in mind, the Lakers would fight their way through the playoffs and face the Detroit Pistons in the finals.
The Lakers looked exhausted from going 7 games. They even fell behind 3-2 in the finals. And they came back and won Game 6.
We're at the Forum in Inglewood, Game 7 of the NBA Finals. After this long, grueling, exciting season, the winner of this game is the champion.
Detroit was a young, hungry team. You could tell they were a team on the rise. And it looked like, from the beginning, that Detroit was going to win the title.
It was a tough, physical, emotional game. Detroit was younger and tougher. I knew it was time for me to be a little bit more aggressive offensively.
Magic double. Worthy's first shot outside hit.
When you get in a game like that, when it's all or nothing, you're in a 7th game, you're at home, you don't leave anything out on the floor.
Worthy on the run. And he's fouled by Lambeer and ends up 3 rows in.
I went to work. I went to work in departments that I usually don't succeed in.
Cooper finds Worthy inside, and he gets it over John Sally. That was a tough shot over Sally.
What makes a great player a Hall of Famer is when he does something extraordinary in the biggest moments.
Worthy's been a big gun for the Lakers.
what he needed.
36, 16, and 10 in Game 7 of the NBA Finals. Big game, James. You don't get that nickname for no reason.
The game ends. The Lakers have won it again.
What I remember about that game is afterwards, James Worthy said, I was so tired.
I just remember Magic congratulating me, because usually it was him or Kareem. And I didn't even think about that at the moment, because I didn't really know how much I had in points and stats.
That performance would go down in the top 10 of Game 7s in NBA Finals history. It was that good.
James, congratulations on being the MVP of this series.
Thank you very much, Brent. He was always at his best when the lights were the brightest.
That night in 1988, no one will ever forget.